Albert Wesker, one of video games' most iconic villains. He is usually one of the first people you think about when you think of Resident Evil. He served as the main antagonist of the first Resident Evil game and became a recurring villain up until his death in Resident Evil 5. Welcome to Bird's Tales. That show we take any character from any media and break down their lives and try to understand their character. Today's subject is Albert Wesker. Little is known about Albert Wesker's childhood, but he was born sometime in 1960. His birth name is even a mystery. What we do know is Albert Wesker was taken from his parents by Oswald E. Spencer for the purpose of raising a group of like-minded individuals who will be infected with the progenitor virus. All of the children possess the same last name, Wesker. The Weskers were put in environments that allowed them to receive the best education. The children would go into different fields of study, with Albert Wesker going into biotechnology. In 1997, Wesker was officially hired by Umbrella. He was placed in the Umbrella Executive Training Facility, a boarding school that was created to indoctrinate child prodigies with the core values of Umbrella. At the facility, the students were taught chemistry, biology, sociology, and political science. Now, I can hear somebody in the background screaming, wasn't Wesker a part of the Wesker Project? Why the hell is Umbrella acting like they don't know of him? Now, there's two answers to that question. The first one being, different writers, different stories. The Wesker Project was something new. And then there's the right answer. The Wesker Project wasn't an Umbrella project, it was a Spencer project. So Umbrella as a company had no idea of this project. And to them, Wesker is just like any other child prodigy who graduated college early. Now, back to the story. The facility was a great idea for Umbrella, however, there was one huge problem about it. What was that problem? Since its opening in 1968, many of the students were deemed unfit for Umbrella. But that wasn't the only problem. James Marcus was the second one. But this video is not about him and his many crimes that he's done at that facility. There was something different in the year 1978. Most of the students in that year were deemed lackluster. There were two students who stood out. Those two prodigies being William Birkin and, of course, Albert Wesker. Dr. James Marcus, the director of the facility and the co-founder of Umbrella, was so impressed by their ruthlessness and dedication to research that he offered them an apprenticeship. The two students earned his trust during a time where he couldn't trust anyone. However, their apprenticeship wouldn't last long. That same year, the training facility was closed, and Birkin and Wesker were moved to the Yarkley laboratory. During their time there, Umbrella had received a sample of the Ebola virus. This would cause Birkin and Wesker to splice genes from the Ebola virus onto the prototype T virus. This new strain was better at bypassing the immune system, and it would be used to create Cerberus in hunters. However, it did have its own problem. That problem being 10% of the population was immune to it. This would be the cause for the creation of those two BOWs. There they would also be introduced to Lisa Trevor, Umbrella's biggest victim. But that is more important for Birkin, and this is not a Birkin video, this is a Wesker video. In 1998, 10 years after the training facility was closed, at the request of Oswald E. Spencer, Wesker and Birkin assassinated their former mentor. Back at the Yarkley lab, Birkin would begin his own experiments on Lisa Trevor. This would lead to the discovery of a new strain, which would later lead to the creation of the G virus. In that same year, Umbrella began development on their Tyrants. The Tyrants were created using the Epsilon strain. However, there was one huge problem. Due to the strain favorability with those with specific genetic traits, Umbrella had to find someone with those traits. They were in luck because that person was already working at that company, that being Colonel Sergei Vladimir. In 1991, Wesker joined the US military as an Umbrella mode, where he served as an engineering officer. During his time in the military, Wesker had a sexual relationship with a Siberian woman with whom he had a child. However, before finding out anything about this child, Wesker had lost all interest in her, realizing that he can have sexual relations with himself. In 1996, Wesker left the military and was reassigned by Umbrella. Wesker became a member of Raccoon's private-funded Special Forces, the Special Tactic and Rescue Service, or STARS. He was assigned captain of the Alpha Team, and his subordinates were Barry Burton, Brad Vicker, Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, and of course, the man himself, Joseph Frost. In 1998, many Umbrella researchers were infected with the T virus at the Yarkley lab. Around that same time, many Cerberus BOWs escaped. The Cerberus BOWs attacked and killed many travelers in that area. In July of that same year, a train was sent to the Umbrella training facility for its reopening. This project was spearheaded by Wesker and Birkin. This is likely due to the recent loss of the Arclay lab. However, on its way to the facility, the train was attacked. 2 hours later, STAR's Bravo team was sent to investigate a series of cannibalistic murders at the Arclay Mountains. Once there, the team were first to land. Rebecca Chambers, the team's medic, and rear security came across the Ecliptic Express, the train that was attacked earlier. On the train, she found former Marine Billy Cones. Later, Rebecca and Billy found themselves at the Umbrella Executive Training Facility. Unknowing to them, the situation at the facility was being monitored by Wesker and Birkin. While monitoring the situation, Birkin and Wesker's surveillance were interrupted. The one who interrupted their surveillance was the man who attacked the Ecliptic Express. They then discovered the identity of this person. He was Dr. James Marcus, but not really, because he was also the Queen Leech, so we're just gonna call him Dr. Queen Leech James Marcus. Wesker began to believe that this may be the end for Umbrella, so Wesker tells Birkin his plans of betraying Umbrella. Birkin decides to stay with Umbrella to complete his G-Virus. Wesker then leaves and Birkin makes the decision to destroy the facility. While at the facility, Wesker encounters Colonel Sergei Vladimir. Colonel Sergei Vladimir blamed the two for the outbreak. They were then interrupted by Birkin pressing the self-destruct button. I think this is a great time to mention it, but there is a slight issue with times when dealing with the original Resident Evil, so I will be using the Resident Evil Remastered for this portion. Wesker managed to escape the facility and he made his way to the events of Resident Evil 1. He returned to the Raccoon Police Department, and it is unknown when this event occurred, but sometime there, Wesker threatened Barry Burton, and he forced him to help him with his plans. Next day, July 24th, 1998, after losing all contact with Bravo Team, Alpha Team made their way to the Arclay Mountains. This mission was served as Wesker's last mission with STARS, and his last mission with Umbrella. Arriving at the Arclay Mountains, they then discovered the body of police officer Kevin Dooley. Joseph Frost is then sneak attacked by Cerberus pay from Wesker. Wesker is the person who promoted him. He knows what Joseph Frost is capable of, and he knew he couldn't handle that, so he had to get rid of him. Something slipped Wesker's mind. Before this mission, Joseph Frost gave Chris the title of Frost number 2. So from here on out, I'll either be referring to Chris as the Frost Boulder Puncher or by his real name, whichever one makes me happy. Fun fact about Joseph Frost: according to Kenichi Iwao, the scenario writer of the original Resident Evil, Joseph Frost is named after Joseph Joestar. That's why he shouldn't be underestimated. Okay, I don't know why the hell I was talking about Joseph Frost for so long, but anyway, the team escaped from the Cerberus and their pilot leaves them. Jesus Christ, Wesker, what is this team? The team ran to the nearby mansion, and the survivors were Best Girl Jill Valentine's, Barry Burton, the second coming of the Frost, aka Chris Redfield, and of course, Albert Wesker. In the mansion, the team decides to split up. I don't know why, this is clearly a haunted mansion. Last thing you should be trying to do is be Scooby and a gang, but back to the video. Wesker would then begin to observe the STARS team collecting combat data. He would then find out that Enrico Marini was still alive with evidence against him. Depending on who you chose at the beginning, the scene plays out different, but the outcome is still the same. Wesker shoots Enrico, and instead of chasing the shooter, the character decides to sit there with Enrico as he dies. Wesker then returned to the laboratory and began to awaken the tyrant to kill the rest of the survivors. Also around that time, Wesker infected himself with a mutant strain of the T-virus given to him by Birkin. Later, the STARS members arrived at the laboratory and cornered Wesker. Wesker revealed the truth to them, then he awakened the tyrant. Wesker ordered the tyrant to kill the STARS members, but the tyrant turns on Wesker and impales him. When writing the script, I started to think that maybe Wesker and the Tyrant are somewhat alike in this situation. The Tyrant attacks Wesker because it's a killing machine. And just like the Tyrant, Wesker was a monster created by Spencer. And because of the way he was made, Wesker would be the cause for the death of Spencer, who was in poor health, but I'm still giving the kill to Wesker, and he will be one of the causes for the destruction of Umbrella. However, as we all know, Wesker doesn't die here. Wesker awakens to an empty room, with his computer access being restricted by Colonel Vladimir and the Red Queen. Wesker then began to escape the destruction of the Arklay laboratory as well as the Spencer Mansion. In the Spencer Mansion, he defeats Lisa Trevor and her suffering is finally ended. Wesker planned to collect combat data on a Tyrant and give them to Umbrella's rival company, but he wasn't successful in this. However, Wesker does begin his employment in that company. During the destruction of Raccoon, Ada was sent by Wesker and Umbrella's rival to retrieve a sample of the G-Virus. After retrieving this sample, Wesker directs Ada to an Umbrella helicopter, which she uses to escape the destruction of Raccoon. In December of 1998, Wesker makes his way to Rockford Islands alongside his new Special Operations Unit, the HCF. There, they completely destroy the islands trying to find Alexia Ashford T. Veronica virus. Wesker then runs into Claire Redfield as she is trying to escape the island. Wesker once again proves that his hands are rated E for everyone. Wesker allows Claire to escape, saying he may have further use for her, and he continues his mission. He was unsuccessful in finding the T. Veronica virus, but he was able to learn information on Claire Redfield's location. One day later, the Frost arrives to the island and he encounters Wesker. Wesker then shows off his new superhuman strength and speed, and he tells the Frost a little bit about his new employment as well as where his sister is. As Wesker was going to kill Chris, Alexia Ashford appears on a nearby monitor, distracting Wesker and allowing Chris to escape his grip. After Wesker finds the location of Alexia Ashford, Wesker leaves the Rockford Island heading to Umbrella's Arctic base, which was also the location of Claire Redfield. After arriving at the base, Wesker finds himself in a replica of Spencer Mansion. In the main hall, he encounters Alexia Ashford. Wesker then tells Alexia Ashford that he wants her body. Like, Jesus, he could have offered her dinner first. But she refuses him and begins to transform. Wesker is then forced to flee because of her overwhelming power. Not long after, HCF forces discover the body of Steve Burnside, who was infected with the T. Veronica virus. After Wesker encounters Claire and Chris, he initially takes Claire as hostage, but the promise of fighting the second coming of the Frost was too much for him, so he let her go. Once again, Wesker managed to overwhelm Chris with his newfound power, but Chris managed to get the better of him by dropping metal girders onto him. However, Wesker survives and he didn't even have a scratch, but then the exploding facility damaged Wesker, and Wesker allows Chris to escape. For now. After retrieving the T. Veronica virus, Wesker took more of a senior salesman in the company, selling the new BOW clones to interesting parties, one of those parties being Rafael Hidalgo. Hidalgo was a customer of Umbrella for 10 years, but as the prices of Umbrella's sweet products began to rise, Wesker came with a cheaper option. After Hidalgo released the products, this was done because he was upset that his daughter was missing. Not long after, the US government sent in their new anti-Umbrella pursuit and investigation team, aka Leon and Krauser. After the event, a now injured Krauser approaches Wesker, knowing he can help him. Krauser then fakes his death and joins Wesker. In early 2003, Wesker makes his way to a village in the Caucasus region of the Russian Federation. He was yet again trying to steal Umbrella data. There he encounters Jill and Chris, who were there investigating that village. The villagers were infected with the T-virus, and Chris and Jill had only found one survivor. They then blamed Wesker for the incident at the village, but he said that it was just a mistake. Not sure how that clears his name. Wesker then escapes after Hunter's attack. Wesker makes his way to a home of a researcher who is living at the village. Jill and Chris are not too far behind him. Once they arrive at the researcher's home, the little survivor gives Wesker what he was looking for, the key to the safe. However, it turns out it was a trap. Once the safe was open, it exploded. But as we all know, Wesker survives this. He wasn't able to get what he was looking for inside the safe, but he does leave the home with a disc. Wesker then makes his way to the nearby Umbrella facility using Chris and Jill as a distraction. Once at the facility, he encounters his biggest rival, the Ivan bodyguards. Wesker defeats the Ivan bodyguards from trying to steal his look and makes his way to the control center. There he encounters Sergei Vladimir, who then infects himself with the T-virus, but Wesker managed to defeat him as well. Then he puts an end to his second biggest rival, the Red Queen. Wesker then leaves the facility with the data that he needed. Not long after, Umbrella is tried and found guilty for all of their crimes in Raccoon City, with Wesker testifying anonymously. Umbrella was then forced to file bankruptcy. A few months after Umbrella is found guilty, Wesker gets in contact with Excella. He secretly decides to work with her, and he gifts her with the T-virus and the T. Veronica virus. With that and Wesker by his side, she was able to become the director of Tricell Africa. In 2004, with the help of Ada, Wesker was able to learn about the Los Illuminados, a cult that believed that the Plagas is a creature given by God. Not long after, Wesker sends Jack Krauser to retrieve a dominant Plaga. Soon after, Umbrella rival finds out about Wesker's meeting with Tricell. He is then forced to send sent Ada also to retrieve the dominant plaga. Plans were to retrieve the dominant plaga from Luis Serra, a former Umbrella researcher and a former Los Illuminados researcher. However, things does not go as planned, but Ada still manages to get the dominant plaga. Wesker is tricked by Ada and given the wrong plaga, but if you can remember, Wesker also sent Jack Krauser to retrieve a plaga, and he was able to do so. And on his corpse, Wesker found the dominant plaga. After retrieving the plaga, Tricell had begun genetically modifying the parasite. During this time, Ricardo Irving became a senior partner in Tricell Africa. He wouldn't take the position of a researcher. Instead, he would be the group's broker, selling the BOWs on the black market. The year was 2006. Irving would be contacted by one Patrick Starr. But who is Patrick Starr? Well, he is the butler of Oswald E. Spencer. Spencer, who is still alive, unlike his company. Spencer wanted to meet with Wesker, and Wesker would meet with Oswald E. Spencer at the Spencer estate. At the Spencer estate, Wesker learns the truth about his origins. After learning about the Wesker project, you realize that everything about Wesker is Spencer. And after this point, whether Wesker knows it or not, he continues on to be Spencer by taking Spencer's goal. Not long after, Chris and Jill interrupt Albert Wesker. They were there trying to arrest Spencer. They then battle, and in the battle, Wesker was able to get his hands on Chris again. But this time, Jill was there to save Chris. She tackled Wesker, falling out of the window with him. Wesker and Jill survives this, and he takes her back to a Tricell lab in Africa. After returning to the lab, Wesker began to work on his plan. But what was this plan? If I didn't explain the plan, I'm going to explain it now. The plan was to create a world with superior humans. But how would he do this? He would create a virus that would force those with specific genes to evolve into those superior humans. Those who cannot evolve do not deserve to be in his world. After those superior humans are created, he will be the god of that new world. That was Spencer planning. That's the plan that Wesker took from him. I apologize if I don't sound too excited when talking about that plan, but it's a really stupid plan. Now, what happened to Jill? Jill became a Tricell test subject, but due to her antibody, she proved to be a poor test subject. And instead of killing Jill, Wesker decides to keep her around, and he will use a device to control Jill. Wesker was working on the Ouroboros project for 2 years, and during this time, he will purchase missiles. The missiles were very important to the plan. He is going to use them to release the virus into the troposphere. The year was 2009. Chris and his new partner Sheva made their way to a city near the Tricell facility called Kajuju. They were there to arrest Ricardo Irving. After Irving escaped from the Frost and his partner many times, they managed to catch and defeat him. As he was dying, the 2 BSAA agents asked him about the Ouroboros project. He told them there was no way they can stop it, but after realizing he was talking to the second coming of the Frost, he pointed at a cave, laughing, saying that all the answers the Frost wanted was there. The cave that Irving pointed to was the location of the flower, stairway of the sun, or as common folk may know it, the source of the progenitor virus. It was also home to an umbrella laboratory that was taken over by Tricell. Wesker was deeper in the cave with Excella and the brainwashed Jill. The Frost and Sheva make their way deeper into the cave and they encounter Excella, Wesker, and the brainwashed Jill. Wesker is pressed with time and he can only spare
7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you.
Before he has to leave to finish his plan. During that time, Wesker purchased a stealth bomber, which will be used to help spread the virus. Wesker and Excella then boarded a freight train. They must have took their sweet ass time because Chris and Sheva saw them. Boulder Puncher and Sheva snuck onto the ship. It was shown earlier that Wesker needed medication because of the mutated T-virus strain he took in 1998. The 2 BSAA agents encounter Excella. She had 2 briefcases with her, one containing the Ouroboros virus, the other containing Wesker's medication. They shot one of the briefcases out of her hand, and once she returned to Wesker, she was infected with the Ouroboros virus, but she did not have the genetic characteristics needed to control the virus, so she is mutated into a slug monster, giant slug monster. This is somewhat of a reality check for Excella, who believed that she would be able to rule by Wesker's side. But here you can see it was only a dream, since she couldn't even control the Ouroboros virus. Wesker makes his way to the stealth bomber and is found by the Frost and his partner, Sheva. They then inject Wesker with a large dose of medication found in the briefcase shot out of Excella's hand. It doesn't kill him. Wesker is only weakened by this. He is able to escape and board the stealth bomber, but the 2 BSAA agents aren't too far behind him. him. On the aircraft, they are able to inject Wesker with even more serum, and he is weakened further. The plane then crashed into an island with an active volcano. Wesker soon realized something. No matter what frost it is, they will get in his way, so he infected himself with a large dose of the Ouroboros virus. During this fight, Chris shows why he was chosen to be the second coming of the Frost by punching the hell out of a boulder. He also wanted to make sure he had the body for that title, so he never missed the gym day since Code Veronica. Wesker soon falls into the lava, and a BSA helicopter picks up the boulder puncher and his partner. And in the helicopter, Chris and his partner Sheva shoot rockets at Wesker, finally killing him. I know this is a really popular opinion, and many people agree, but it should have been Jill instead of Sheva. We made it to my favorite part of the video, Wesker's character analysis. Now, when analyzing Wesker's character, I think the best place to start with is his God complex. As many of you already know, a God complex is the belief that one has great power, influence, and is superior to everyone, and only he can change the world. Wesker believed that he was the only one worthy enough to create this new world, and he was going to be God of this new world. This narcissistic trait of Wesker is best shown in Resident Evil 5, but throughout Resident Evil, he does view everyone as inferior to him. The next thing that I notice about Wesker is his need for power. This was most likely formed during the Wesker project, much like his other traits. And Wesker would do anything to get that power, no matter who stood in his way. Umbrella, Vladimir, they all stood directly in Wesker's way, so he had to get rid of them. There's 4 possible reasons Wesker didn't get rid of Chris when he had the chances to. 1. Chris never really stood directly in Wesker's way. He was still able to finish most of his plans, even if Chris was there. 2. Plot armor. 3. Chris is the second coming of the Frost, and Wesker wasn't just yet satisfied with him. And 4. Wesker may be a little gay for Chris. One of the ways Wesker felt like he gained that power was through BOWs. Look, I know they mentioned that Wesker had a plan, but that plan was never really mentioned in detail, unlike his plan in Resident Evil 5. And look at the scene.
Thanks to you, however, Umbrella's one step closer to its re-establishment.
Does that make any fudging sense? No. So I'm gonna say he collected BOWs because he needed the power he felt that they gave him. Post-production tests here, after looking back on the scene, I realized just how dumb I was. Wesker wants to be the one calling the shots, and I explained that just a bit later. When I first saw this scene, I thought Wesker was talking about Umbrella, but it's not. He's talking about his umbrella, the umbrella that he will be the head of. I was gonna take that last part out, but I decided to keep it in just so you can laugh at my stupidity. I would also say this was one of the reasons he invested some of his life into biotechnology. And of course, Wesker wants to be the one calling the shots, which is one of the reasons he betrayed Umbrella and uses everyone to get to that position at the top. The next thing that I noticed is not something that I wrote in the script, but I noticed it while making this video. Wesker really loves to fight. I mean, he really loves to fight. If he can spare 7 minutes, he will spare them. And I started asking myself, why? And well, I came up with an answer. It's not really about the fight for Wesker. It's about asserting his dominance and proving that he's better than you. The next thing I want to mention is Wesker's lack of empathy. Wesker can't understand human emotions. It's not something he was programmed with. These traits of Wesker's is best shown in pretty much every game he's in. If Wesker is in that media, it is most likely shown in it. The next thing that I noticed about Wesker is probably not 100% true, but I feel that Wesker has childhood trauma. It's impossible to know exactly what he went through during the Wesker project, but we can guess. I would say that it's most likely that Wesker was emotionally neglected, physically abused, emotionally abused. There, Wesker wasn't even a child. All he was just another Wesker. Whatever happened to Albert during the Wesker project created who he was. Whether Spencer noticed it or not, but Albert was way too perfect. He was everything Spencer wanted in a Wesker child. Unfortunately, he was just way too perfect, that no one can control him, not even his own creator. Wesker's death spreads throughout the underworld, and it makes its way to Ada Wong and Alex Wesker. Alex Wesker being another child who was raised in a Wesker project. Even though Ada knew what kind of person Albert was, she still felt a little empty learning about the death of someone she's worked with for many years, and Alex Wesker was saddened by the news, proving that she is nowhere as perfect as Albert Wesker. Even though Spencer does say she is the brightest and perfectest of all the Wesker children, Alex Wesker would then acquire a sample of the Ouroboros virus and begin her own project of creating a new world. How the fuck did she learn about this plan? It's okay, I got my answer. And if you can't remember and care about Resident Evil 6, Wesker had a child on the way, and that child's name was Jack Mueller. Who the hell cares about Resident Evil 6 though? Before his death, Wesker HCF forces began working with the Connections on development of E001, or Evelyn. I would love to end this video with saying that Wesker lived the life he wanted and died trying to achieve his goals, even though his goals were pretty shit. But that would be lying, because Wesker lived the life he was assigned by Spencer, and no matter how hard he tried, he never was able to break out of that. Thank you so much for making it this far into the video. If you like it, of course you can give it a like. And if you did it, I'm happy you made it this far into the video. And of course, you can always comment what character you want me to do next. You still here? That's it, I done got